latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So the president is scrambling the USS Gerald Ford, the most advanced aircraft carrier in the world, and sending it to the Middle East, saying, well, you never know.
The talks resuming with Iran Tuesday, this time in Geneva. Trump has dispatched a second aircraft carrier to the region, the USS Gerald R. Ford.
In case we don't make a deal, we'll need it. If we don't have a deal, we'll need it.
If we don't have a deal, we'll need it. It's a bit cryptic. That was Fox News reporting. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, was asked about Iran and the state of negotiations, such as they are, after his speech at the Munich Security Conference this weekend, and said this.
Attacks on Iran or anything of that nature, because the president's made clear he prefers diplomacy and an outcome of negotiated settlement. Now, we're dealing with radical Shia clerics. Okay, we're dealing with people who make geopolitical decisions on the basis of pure theology, and it's a complicated thing. I mean, no one's ever been able to do a successful deal with Iran, but we're going to try. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be traveling. I think they're traveling right now to have important meetings, and we'll see how that turns out. And we'll always comply with the applicable laws of the United States in terms of involving Congress in any decisions. But right now, we're not talking about any of that. We are postured in the region for one simple reason, and that is that we understand that there could be threats to our forces in the region. We've seen them be threatened in the past, and we want to make sure that we have sufficient capacity to defend them if, God forbid, that were to happen. We'll follow whatever the law is on it, and it depends on the circumstance that lead to it. But right now, we're talking about negotiations. We are focused on negotiations. That's what we're focused. The president's made that clear. If that changes, it'll be obvious to everyone, and obviously, whatever the law requires us to do, we'll do.
For more on this and many other matters, Stephen Bucci joins us. He served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back on the show.
So the USS Gerald Ford is going to the Mediterranean because we'll need it if negotiations don't work. I mean, I hate to take Trump literally on that, but what is your interpretation of that statement?
Well, it's part of the negotiations, and part of that is to let the Iranians know that we're serious, that negotiations have an end point with President Trump. And if you don't come up with something that he finds acceptable, that he moves to the next methodology, which is, kinetic engagement. And to do that, you got to have the equipment in the area. And the fact that he's going to have 2 aircraft carrier groups in the area this time, that means it's going to be pretty significant, or could be pretty significant, should he make that final decision.
So if negotiations break down, if they don't get a deal to liking, you think that strikes are inevitable? Escalation is inevitable?
It's not inevitable, but it's highly likely, particularly if the Iranians keep, playing games and saying, oh, no, we just want this, and well, let's talk some more. Maybe we should move over here. I think President Trump's going to get tired of that pretty quickly. And the fact that he's moving the second aircraft carrier group in there is an indicator that his patience is waning thin.
Well, it's interesting because the patience of some of our erstwhile allies is even thinner. Canada's foreign minister said in announcing new sanctions on Iran, we will not open diplomatic relationships with Iran unless there is a regime change. That doesn't leave much room to negotiate with the current regime.
Yeah, you need to understand, and I think most people do, that our allies have a lot more room to talk tough because they're not going to do anything about
yes.
it. The United States are the ones, probably in conjunction with Israel, that once that point is reached, that the decision to take military action against the regime is made, it's going to be the United States, maybe with some, help around the fringes from some of our friends in the region, but very unlikely. Canada's not going to play in it at all. But they can play with the economic element of power to a degree. But still, it's easier for them to posture and sound tough than we need to sound, and should be open to negotiations, because that's a superior solution than bombing the snot out of somebody. And even the Iranian government, not the Iranian people. But President Trump does need to leave that door open, because that's really what he believes. He would rather make a deal than to put our guys and gals at risk, or to waste all the money that it is that when you do a military action. But he's also not going to allow the Iranians to get a nuclear capability. He doesn't really like the fact that they've continued to develop their ballistic missile capability all through this time, and that basically they're fobbing him on. That ticks him off. And even though he's using his son-in-law and Mr. Witkoff, I mean, those are like his top two negotiators, other than Rubio himself, to work this. I think we've talked about it. It's not like he's sending John Kerry to do the negotiations. So we're either going to get a deal or we're not, and then we're going to take action that is likely, though not necessarily, the reason, it's likely to lead to regime change. And in my opinion, I think that's a good thing for the Iranian people and a good thing for the region. But, I'm up for negotiated settlements. That makes way more sense as one of those people that used to be on the ticket to go and be involved in these things.
So if it does get to the point where negotiations break down and it's time to send a stronger message, that message is not, you don't think, coming with targeted strikes against the Revolutionary Guard or specific higher-ups in the regime. It is coming with the objective of regime change and nothing short of that.
Well, I think those first steps that you mentioned would be the exact things I would do to move towards regime change. They could do that, see if the people rise up, see if the rest of the military says, you know what, we're done with these guys. Let's get rid of them ourselves. I don't think you'll see, the mother of all attacks on Iran as the first step of kinetic activity. I think you will see some intermediate step as the one you described initially, going after the IRGC, going after other key leaders and key institutions that assist them in maintaining control of the people. And if that doesn't cause things to change, cause them to come to a decision to, jettison these programs that they seem to refuse to give up, then you will see a larger step. With two carrier battle groups, you've got a lot of options. And, they're not necessarily, it isn't always go to the big hammer 100% first step. There's usually intermediate steps, even with kinetic responses.
So, I mean, the rhetoric we're getting from the mullahs is typical of the Iranians playing, and I hate to besmirch the legacy of Dean Smith, but essentially their four-corner rhetorical offense, right? They're just passing the ball around. On the one hand, the foreign minister says, I must say very clearly and precisely, Iran's missiles and defense systems will never be subject to any negotiations. And then in the same sentence, just about same breath, next breath, says they're open to a new nuclear deal that actually makes money for both sides. They think they have a mind's eye into Trump. For the agreement to last, the U.S. must benefit too. oil, gas, joint fields, mining, aircraft purchases are all on the table. So they're suggesting that we can make an economic deal if you turn a blind eye to our weapon systems and even a nuclearization program. I don't know that they're serious on either one of these scores, but give us your interpretation of some of these mixed messages and essentially what they're, I assume, trial ballooning to see. Well, we can just cut a deal where we buy some stuff from the U.S. Which why would we provide weapons to the Iranians?
Exactly.
And then but we can do like an economic deal because Trump likes to do economic deals. Is essentially it.
Yeah, I think it shows you the skill culturally of the Iranians as negotiators. They are tough. They're hardcore, and they'll stay that way until it looks like doesn't seem to be working. All right, let's take the next step. Let's offer them some kind of deal that and picking a deal that is crafted exactly to tempt the man they're negotiating with. Because even though Kushner and Witkoff are the ones going, they know they're really negotiating with Donald Trump, and he does like economic deals. That's always in his mind is the economic betterment of the American people. But I don't think he's going to sell the security of America and the security of Israel and our other allies in the region just to make to sell a couple extra airplanes. That's sorry, mullahs. That is so not sweet enough that would even be considered. I think it's a sign that the mullahs realize they are in a very weak position, and because they haven't moved in that direction in my memory. So the fact that they are tells you that they realize that the curtain's starting to come down on their regime.
I wanted to turn to the Chinese communists. The Homeland Security Task Force in Jacksonville, Florida, announced a multi-jurisdictional enforcement operation charging individuals involved in a Chinese transnational criminal organization for marriage fraud. Some might think that's a redundant phrase. The organization recruited service members, U.S. service members, to participate in fraudulent marriages and enable Chinese nationals to obtain immigration benefits and access cards for U.S. military installations. In an unsealed 3-count indictment, 11 people were charged in the scheme with marriage fraud conspiracy, marriage fraud, and bribery conspiracy. But, I mean, this is another sort of angle into trying to get U.S. secrets and compromise secure, sensitive U.S. facilities and maybe even launch attacks on the homeland from the inside by the Chinese Communist Party. It's just I hadn't heard of this nature of black ops, but there it is.
Yeah, this is, I think, with the Chinese is more likely a straight up espionage thing. It's a honey trap on steroids. Not only do you get the
better notify Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, it's not only do you get that, but you have the financial elements to it. Paying people off and doing that. The Chinese are not inclined to do what jumps to our mind of a terrorist operation against us. Now, if we go to war with them, they're having agents here is likely. We have not seen a lot of agents of China here with the intent of them planting bombs places or doing that sort of thing. They do try and get into our industrial control systems of our computers and infrastructure. So there could be something there. But since it was targeted on the military facilities, it's more than likely just a straight up espionage thing. That's not to lowball it and say this is not a big deal. But the Chinese are constantly trying to get into our systems and gain intelligence. And this is a small riff on a more traditional way of doing that. And we need to arrest these people who have been compromised. We need to capture their agents and and get them out of the country. And we need to start looking around and realize we got to tighten all these things. Obviously, the Chinese know our immigration system is screwed up because now they're using it as a tunnel into our military facilities. That should tell us all this is another proof that we need to fix this system.
Something else, too, and we've seen this play out in places like Dearborn, Michigan, to some extent Minneapolis. Islamist separatists in American cities or taking over American cities. We have something going on in Dallas that actually Representative Brandon Gill has been discussing. This epic mosque that is underway in Plano, Texas, and it's being described as operating like a mini Islamic city in Plano, complete with Islamic neighborhoods, health clinics, Sharia-compliant banking, halal food markets, and more. The imam who is behind the epic mosque is somebody who has raised funds for Hamas-linked charities, quote-unquote, has been on the Homeland Security's terrorist watch list, declared the Holocaust a hoax, and defended the Taliban. I think you're starting to get the picture here. The Islamicization of American cities on this level with individuals that have this profile, this speaks to federal immigration policy, speaks to a national security eye to federal immigration policy. But I mean, this Islamicization, as I said, of American communities, it seems like something that should perhaps be raised up and addressed writ large.
Oh, absolutely. But you realize that as soon as that happens, if it does under this administration,
Islamophobia, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the entire Democrat Party will be crying foul. All of their activist judges will be, listening to court cases to say how this was profiling and, religious prejudice and everything else. I'm sorry, if people of one particular sort are, I'm not saying we should ban Islam in America, but when we have cases like this, they need to be prosecuted. They need to be investigated because it looks pretty sketchy to anybody with, any sort of engaged brain. When you look at it, there's danger there. And everybody in those communities, as you mentioned, Dearborn or Minneapolis or now down in Plano.
Actually, southwest suburbs in Chicagoland, too. Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
It doesn't mean that everybody who lives there is bad.
No.
Immigrant communities tend to cluster together and always have. But if there are cells within those communities that have nefarious intent, we need to be checking it out. We need to investigate, and we need to prosecute when it's appropriate. And if that offends the woke view of some other people, the Karens out there that are, think anything our government does is clearly, it's immediately we're all Nazis. We should not be dissuaded by that crazy kind of interpretation from doing what we need to do to protect our citizens and protect our national security.
Because you're a friend, I don't think I should be the only one that gets the joy of commenting on what AOC had to say in Munich as she's auditioning on the global stage to be taken seriously as a possible presidential candidate, ostensibly. She was asked the tough question about, hey, what if China invades Taiwan, something clearly she's never thought about. And this is what she said. I'm going to give you the, like I said, you should be able to have some fun, too, not just me.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Yeah, what do you think, Steve?
She hasn't won my vote yet. Let's put it that way.
No.
No. I mean, come on. How could you not be prepared if you're at a foreign policy event and you're, as you're saying, you're auditioning? That's one of the top three, security questions that the American leadership has to address. Any leadership that comes in of any party, and to not have at least a competent answer other than, well, it's really important, and we'd rather not do that. Nuclear weapons, if they go off, they're bad. Yeah, okay, thanks, Congresswoman. You're really showing your expertise there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, too. Not that she knows there is such a thing, but the One China policy does not commit us to troops if China were to move on Taiwan, which she essentially said was longstanding U.S. policy. It's never been U.S. policy, in fact.
No, it's not. And, is a support of Taiwan one of our pillars? Yeah, it pretty much has been. We at least imply that to mainland China regularly. We do the freedom of navigation stuff all around the Chinese coastline. But we do not have like an Article 5 agreement with Taiwan. We don't. In fact, we very specifically don't. And, the one China policy is, the key is that we don't have that out there on paper. The Chinese know it's a possibility, the communist Chinese, but it has not been a policy. So, yeah, she's been reading too many, Twitter feeds and not enough actual policy.
Well, if you thought that she was the dumbest person in attendance in Munich, well, you'd be wrong. And this is not me saying it. It's her saying it. The Eva Peron of East Lansing, Gretchen Whitmer, was in the same panel, and she was asked about Ukraine, something that as a governor you don't have to think about. So she doesn't know what to do except hope for the best.
On Ukraine, what does victory look like?
Ambassador? No, please. I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, we all would.
It is. The two that I am on the panel with are much more steeped in foreign policy than a governor is. But I do think that Ukraine's independence, keeping their land mass, and having the support of all the allies, I think is the goal from my vantage point. Go ahead, Ambassador. Do a better job.
No, that's impossible. So do you think the ticket should be Whitmer and AOC or AOC and Whitmer? Which order, Steve?
Oh, God. Either one, if they win, would be horrific. If they run, it might be a good thing. We might have a better shot. We'd have a pretty good shot at keeping a Republican in the White House. But look,
I know two people who'd like to see them on that ticket, Putin and Xi.
Yeah, exactly. Look, yes, she's a governor. Yes, that foreign policy should not be their main focus. But again, you're going to an event like this on the international stage. We know their heart of hearts is to somehow get on a ticket. You think you would prepare yourself. Ukraine's the other, one of the other three biggest issues. I don't know if they asked them anything about the Middle East, but I have a feeling the answers would be just as vacuous.
Yeah, well, of course, AOC would be talking about the state of Palestine. Just because you're a governor, you're not precluded from knowing something about foreign affairs. Just like any other American citizen, you're allowed to actually, read and have some thoughts on the salient geopolitical issues of the day. But I don't want to set the bar too high for them. Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. We look forward to talking to you next week.
We'll talk to you then. Thank you, sir. And Stephen joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information. To start your day, it's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
With so much financial uncertainty, are you wondering if your retirement savings will last? The market ups and downs can keep you guessing, especially if you're approaching retirement